everyone. So I had posted on my Instagram this week that I was going to hop on here and make a new YouTube video about kind of talking about relationships. So like specifically, I'm talking about like intimate relationships, like like a significant other, not just friendships. So anyways, I have thought about this for a while, and it's one of those things. I am not the expert. I'm only not quite 4 years. It'll be 4 years in April. Have been married, but of course I've dated over the years, and I have thought too. I'm not an expert for sure. I don't have like a ton of experience, but also my marriage, my relationship is not perfect. So I almost didn't make the video, and then the more I thought about it, I thought that's probably why I should share it, because I think, and I talk a lot about, if you watch any of my other lengthier videos, I have talked about talked about people's highlight reels and social media causing a lot of, FOMO and jealousy, not even intentionally, but I think we get on there and are like, oh, their house is so beautiful, their vehicle's so clean, or their kids are so, so well behaved or so smart or whatever it looks like. But I think it's good to get on here, like I've said before, and just keep it real. I say that all the time, but it's kind of teasy-ish, but really I mean it, just to get on here and keep it real, and kind of share some of the raw things and the not so fun things, in hopes to not like bore you or like make us look like a train wreck, but also to share that people are real life and we all go through things and we all need support and we're not perfect, none of us. So basically, I'm just going to share a little bit like my thoughts, and some encouragement. Like, I don't want it to be a negative thing or this be a negative video. I want it to be of encouragement. So I'm only 29 and my husband is 36, so there's obviously that age gap. When I met my husband, I had really, both of us had just got out of a relationship, both pretty serious, I guess you could say. Mine maybe being a little bit more serious, and we neither have anything bad about either of those. I'm not going to get into all that, but it's more about, we were both not in a great position to probably be dating. I had always really been in like long-term, like more serious relationships. I was never someone that like I just enjoyed dating to date. He had several girlfriends and so forth, so we won't get into that. But I just really, I was not in a great place to be dating. After we started dating, just like a lot of people, a lot of couples, we had a lot of ups and downs, just selfishness on both ends, just childlike behavior. I mean, when you're young and you don't know what you want, Josh really didn't want to have kids or get married, and I knew that was something that I wanted to do. So I wasn't settling, I knew I wanted those things for myself. I didn't want him to settle either. I wanted him to have what he wanted, but that was something I wasn't going to negotiate on. I wanted that. So fast forward, we got past our very juvenile stages of our dating, and we ended up getting engaged in February. And we had, I had called around, I was trying to book a photographer, I was trying to look for a venue, all that good stuff that comes with planning a wedding. And I had decided, one night, I was like, I'm just going to have this conversation with him and fill him out, because I really don't know how he feels. We were both so busy. I just graduated and I was working my career at this point, and he was so busy at the time with his work. And we were in passing, a lot. So we didn't get to talk a whole lot. But one night we happened to be home, and I just said, this is a lot of work and a lot of money. And me and him are very, we love to have fun, and we do, especially now that we have our boy, we will, spend things on, maybe a little bit more outside of our norm. But me and him are very practical. So I'm like, it's a lot of money, and we were going to be paying for it. I'm like, and, it's just so much time, and I'm gonna be honest, like, I'm not enjoying this. I love decorating. I love like party planning and things like that. I don't so much anymore because I've got my hands full, but used to years ago I would like thrive off that kind of stuff. So at the time, like, I would have thought I would have really enjoyed this, but no, that was a negative. I did not enjoy it. And I just told him, like, this is really just getting out of hand. So we had like went back and forth. I'm like, what if we just get married? You know, like at that point we knew we wanted to be married. We had, you know, grown past all the past and just, you know, that, like I said, the juvenile kind of stuff. And we just decided, let's go for it. Let's get married. We really wanted to focus on being married because, of course, we both come from different backgrounds. His parents aren't married, of course, anymore. And if you know us, you know that. My parents had been married 36. I think it'll be 37 years. I think 37 years this April. So anyways, we had just come from different backgrounds, and our goal at the end of the day, and we both take good, bad, ugly, indifferent from both growing up, both, you know, any relationships that we had been around, not even just from our parents. And we had already been very open about the goals and the things that we wanted to set in place for us, because he had things that kind of put a bad taste in his mouth. I had things that kind of put a bad taste in my mouth. And we wanted to make sure we were very open and upfront about like our goals and our marriage and how we were going to communicate when it came to finances and children and health and all of those things, because I wanted to take our vows very seriously. So, and him as well, we wanted to, you know, together. So we ended up, like I said, we got engaged in February. We ended up getting married early April. I just messaged my family and very few like extremely close friends that were like directly involved in like our everyday life, and messaged them, and we're like, hey, we're doing this, we hope you can make it. If not, no feelings are going to be hurt. I ordered, I think, like a $50, maybe $75 dress off a boutique online. I didn't get it like it was like, no, I didn't get it altered, nothing. Like, we were just doing it. So we ended up getting married early April. And then Briggs was born in 2020 in March. So we had immediately knew we were going to go ahead and start trying to have a baby. Josh was in his early 30s, but he wanted to go ahead and start, especially if we were going to have multiple children. And people talk about marriage and they always say, like, if you can get it through that first year, you're good. Like, you know, the first year is the roughest. Well, I beg to differ. Our first year was really good. It was chill and carefree. You know, it was like very much the honeymoon stage. And again, we didn't go on honeymoon. That was another thing, because again, just practical. We're both busy, really tied up in jobs, and like I said, very practical. So we had goals and things, and we were trying to flip houses, and his excavating was really busy, and I just started my career. So didn't do that. But we were still having fun. We had just flipped like our house that we were living in together, and it was our first house together that we purchased together, so it was a really big deal. And we just started rock and rolling. We loved it. We started trying for our son, and it was good, right? But as time progressed, we ended up having our son. And when I shared this video, I don't want to just share about being parents, because like relationships are a thing that it's super important when you're dating to be sure about the person you're with and so forth. So I'll come back to that. But in our situation, we ended up having our son Briggs, and in 2020 it was the day that they did the shutdown for visitors in the hospital, and of course masks and all that were quickly mandated. So our family, there was some family members there, and my doctor was a blessing and like grandfathered them in as visitors, but they couldn't hold him. And then the next day, of course, I had to stay overnight, a couple nights, and we were not able to have visitors. So that was right out the gate. Josh had not been around a lot of babies, so like this was really new to him. I have several siblings, 6 adopted siblings, and then of course I had foster siblings growing up, so I had been around babies, and then of course I had nephews and a niece and so forth. So I had a little bit of experience, but it's very different, as most parents that are watching know, when it's your own baby. So I ended up I had a pretty rough labor, and then I had a really rough like postpartum depression. I had came home and I was all alone, and we couldn't have visitors, and everything that I had envisioned my whole life of just having, people swarming us and wanting to see our baby and going to church and showing off your baby and dressing them cute, just all those things. They're not really important in the big scheme of things, but at the time when you're just had your first baby and your hormones are a wreck, and you're not feeling good, because like I said, I had pretty rough labor, I was really, really struggling. And we didn't, like I said, we had a couple visitors in the very beginning, and then we immediately stopped because it was all so new. We had no idea what to expect. That's when they had done like the town shutdowns and had like, you were only supposed to be going to and from work, and there was like curfews and all this crazy stuff. So it was like pretty intense. And we were just, I'll be honest, it was a struggle. So of course that took a big toll on our marriage right out the gate. We had just been married a very short period of time. And I remember thinking to myself, of course, I was a wreck. I was definitely struggling more than he was, of course, because I was, mamas play a different role in a baby's life. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, like, I had no idea it was going to be this as a mother, and then also with my marriage. And it wasn't that Josh wasn't hands-on. He was great. He had a job at the time, though. It was an EPA job, so it's like government funded, so of course immediately he had to go back to work, and I was home and nobody could come see me or help me. And I think even people that wanted to didn't know really what the boundaries were, just as far as like they didn't want to bring anything over to make us sick or cause any issues or end us up in the hospital, because of course we couldn't have any visitors, and like there was all these horror stories of kids being by themselves and so forth. But so we went through that, and that was really challenging. And then of course just life in general. You do have to navigate finances together, and some people don't, but for us that was really important. Biblically, like it talks about being one. We wanted to really go by that. And I had always seen my parents share finances, and my mom stayed home with us and actually homeschooled my two older sisters all the way through, myself through 5th grade. And then, like I said, I had foster siblings and then 6 adopted siblings. So total kids, there was 9. She stayed home. My dad was the breadwinner, and it was just kind of one of those deals. I felt like I was just really struggling. Like I was by myself, and I remember just our marriage, it just took a toll on it. Of course, not even intentionally between us, but just dealing with a newborn baby. My son had colic. My son ended up having what they call as Laryngomalacia, which is like a breathing issue. And then we found out he has pectus excavatum, which is another health concern, which requires a specialist. And I ended up in the ER, and of course my husband couldn't be with me, and we had to go to specialist, and my husband couldn't come with me. My son had some eye difficulties, and the list goes on. So it just really, life just kind of kicked us in the tail. I know it could be so much worse, so don't hear what I'm not. This isn't a poor pitiful me video. I'm just being real and raw, saying that real life hit us, and we had to navigate. I was still working at the time. I left maternity leave and went back to work, which for me at the time was like freedom, because I had been stuck at home and I wasn't doing too great mentally still. And it was just a lot to navigate in our marriage. But what I learned, and then of course things have gotten a little bit back to normal per se, but life still brings things. Like I said, my kids had to have surgery and just some different things like that. And then of course just real life, families. We both have families that we help and take care of and do things with and are very involved with. And just our personal life, our businesses. Like I said, we flip houses, we have rental houses. If anyone does that, it's watching, you know how much work and stress that is. And then we've now flipped our second home. This is like our forever home, our farm that we had bought now. But it was a big challenge because it was, we're planning on staying here long term. And, it requires a lot of detail, a lot of money, a lot of time. And my husband oversees all the job sites. So like he hires out. He doesn't hire like, a general contractor. He just kind of does it all. So a lot of stress. But with all that being said, it was one of those things, and I have to remind myself this frequent, okay? Like I said, keeping it real. I have to remind myself frequent how lucky I am to have Josh as my spouse. People that know him are probably laughing watching this, but he's a handful. But he is so good to me, and he's grown up so much. Like, you know, you hear guys mature slower, like that's a real thing. But he's such a good guy, and he's the best dad ever. And he's a great provider, but he's also a great hands-on dad, and just being present in our lives. Like, he will not miss a doctor's appointment. He's never has. I think he's missed one time when he was in that EPA job, and his mom is so gracious and went with me. But he's great. He's just awesome in every way, and I get all of us, I think, but you know, being honest and raw and real, I get caught up in life sometimes, and I feel like, okay, where do we go from here? You know, and we're not getting along, or we're nitpicky, or we're really stressed because maybe Briggs is teething or having a sleep regression, because those things are real life, and we don't have a ton of support with Briggs as far as like helping take care of him. He doesn't go to daycare or school or anything like that. Our parents work, so it's literally us. My son's aunt, you know, one of his aunts works full time, and then his other two aunts have their own kids, and their own kids have their own needs, and one of my sisters homeschools. So you get it. We really just don't have a lot of help. So it's really just been me, Josh, and Briggs from the gate, which has been really good because it taught us to handle things on our own. We didn't have like that lifeline to call when we needed sleep or just needed to shower. So we had to learn really quick and really fast how to survive and how to support each other, because if we didn't, we would sink. And that is so important. And if you're watching this and you're dating or you're single, please, 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 please listen to what I have to say. People's looks change. Money comes and goes. That's the reality of life. The unfair reality of life. Looks come and go. Money comes and goes. Health, unfortunately, comes and goes. But at the end of the day, if you really truly love your partner, and he, you know, in my case, he is my best friend, and they're your best friend. They're the person you want to go to in time of need. They're someone you can vent to. You have it made. Those things are worth so much. They're worth their weight in gold, you know, because at the end of the day, life, realistically, not to be a Debbie Downer, but as a realist and just keeping it real, life usually doesn't go our way. You know, I always say, like, we have our plan, God has his plan, and he's probably chuckling at us because things don't usually go our way. I mean, realistically, plot twist. I always say plot twist because that's so true. Like, we're constantly navigating and changing and going through different seasons. And even right now, we're going through a really difficult season as far as just change. You know, our son's 3. We're trying to figure out what the next step is as far as, you know, the future with school, and we're getting ready to start on like this new adventure that's going to take up a lot of our time, on top of our flipping houses and rentals, and we're actually going to start two new businesses, you know, coming up, and it's just a lot on our plate. And we still have a 3-year-old, and we love our son. I mean, I can't say that enough, and I think if you know me, you know that. But it's a lot of work, and it takes a lot of time from him. So, like, we're having to navigate, do we place them, like, in a daycare? We've looked into some other different options. So, it's been hard, you know, and also if you're watching and you're a parent and you have to navigate, like, the changes in yourself, you know, that's been more hard, you know. I've read this quote, and I don't know the word for word, but it talks about, like, you know, I knew becoming a mom, things would change. What I didn't know is I would change so much. Like, I'm a totally different person, a totally different friend, a totally different spouse, sister, daughter, you name it, employee at the time, an employer, because of my son. It totally changed me, and some people may not agree, but I agree for the better. And again, you will change. Your life changes whether you have kids or not. Just things change. Times changes things. People in your life, unfortunately, are going to come and go. People are going to pass away due to just, like, you know, old age. And you're going to go through really hard things. And it is so important, I cannot stress this enough, that you can lean on your partner and care for them. Again, I'm not saying this because me and Josh have it figured out. I'm just saying these are things that me and him have had to remind each other and ourselves throughout the years, sharing about our, needs with each other. And hey, like, this is what I'm going through and I'm struggling. Me personally, I've always been someone that's been very social and active in people's lives that are important to me. And I've had to take an entirely huge step back, and it's like taking the wind out of my sails. I'll be honest, I'm not getting to go work out like I used to. I wasn't going like I used to. There were so many different businesses, endeavors, and different things that I wanted to take on and couldn't, just because I didn't have that support with my son. Of course, because like my husband and I, we work together. So it's very hard because like if he needs to go do something, I watch Briggs and vice versa. So it's been very important for me and him too. He's went through these too. Like, it's not just a girl thing where we've had to step back and be like, hey, I'm dealing with this. I'm struggling. It's not personal, but this is the issue and I don't know how to fix it. And I'll be honest, just recently in the past month or two, I have extremely struggled because my husband and I have made the decision to no longer like, we don't have the desire to have any more children. So we're not going to be having any more kids, and we've made permanent changes have been in effect and are done so that we are not having any more children. So we have already come to that agreement. That was a hard agreement in itself, but also just trying to navigate where we're at right now. So I can be the best wife he can be the best husband, so I'm not being naggy when I am with my son or with my husband, and I can try to get back to living and navigating, because I also want Briggs to see me do things that I love and I'm passionate about. It's not even so much about working. I think he's going to get that figured out. But it's more so just about like following my dreams. Like, just because you have a kid doesn't mean you can't do those things. And if you don't want to do those things, that's all right too. So like I said, you go through different seasons. Like, so right now this season's pretty rough. I'll be honest. I thought postpartum was brutal, but it's just been rough. It's been a different change, because I think a lot of people around you, if they haven't made a big change, whether they have kids or not, in their life, they maybe see you as like distant or not as much effort or whatever it looks like. But you have to now take in consideration your child, whether that's with your finances or your time or your like sleep, your patience. I mean, everything. It affects everything, and for the best thing ever. But if they don't know that or don't understand that or didn't have to make those adjustments when they have a kid, because maybe they have a good support system or whatever it looks like, then it may be hard for them to get you. So like that for me was hard, because I'm like, okay, I'm losing friends. And I'm just all around, I was struggling. So picking your partner is so important, because at the end of the day, when people say like, they may be all you've got, they seriously may be all you've got. And there's a lot of times at the end of the day, I just may be having a total crap day. And I want to talk to Josh. Like, I know if I talk to him, I will feel better. I'll have a different view or insight on things. And I'll know, like, I can get through this. Another thing, I'll touch base. This is going to be a long video. I try not to, but I just am who I am. But another thing is like God. For us personally, that's something that's so important. We went through a phase after COVID that we didn't go to church because church was really closed, or it was all like online, which is not the same as going to church, by the way. But we were doing that, watching at home. Briggs had the breathing issues and a lot of health issues, and so we felt like, for us at the time, we felt like, again, I was very emotional, felt like I needed to stay home and kind of protect him just in case, because he was already having such difficulty to, breathing at times. So, and viruses just amplified that. So we were home, we weren't going to church. Again, I didn't have support with Briggs as far as like babysitting and so forth like that. So it was me and Briggs 24/7. He was colic, so he wasn't sleeping. And I really, like, my quiet time, there was no quiet time. I mean, I put that out the door. And to be honest, if I was praying, I was like begging, God, please spare me. Please help me. Give me strength to get through the day, because I just don't think I have it in me. And, Josh, of course, same thing. He wasn't going to church because he was staying home with Briggs and I, even once church was back, like in normal session. And it was just not good for us. Like, I'll be honest. After we had our son, I feel like that was a really good turning point in our relationship with God as well, because I think we realized we've both been raised in church, both gone to church, both have a relationship with God. But I think that was like the turning point. Like, okay, everything we are, everything we do, everything we practice is what they think is normal or what they think is not normal. And again, this is just our preference. But like going to church is so important to us. And even now we have our times we don't go. We're human. Things happen. Our kid still is a kid and gets sick, and we get sick, and life just happens. Owning our own business can be very complicated sometimes. So sometimes we have to skip. I don't encourage it, but it's a reality. And I always can tell a huge difference in our marriage, and even how Briggs acts, because of course he feeds off of our emotions. He feeds off of, kind of the mood of our home. And when me and Josh like do a devotion together, or we pray together, or we pray with Briggs, the whole feel of our home is so much more different. So that's something like I really think too is so important, is just putting God first, because I think once you do that, it makes clarity for all the other things to fall in place. And once you do bring a child, if you bring a child into the world, that is so important. Like going to church and having those routine and watching, praying before meals and praying with your spouse and praying together and, or in front of your child, I think speaks volumes. And I see this meme all the time on social media. It's like, teach your kids to pray so when their hearts are heavy, they know who to go to, right? Like if they don't want to come to us, then they know they can go to God at any time and pray. And I feel like seriously, that is such a huge thing, but also it's not just when they're kids. Like they need to know that God is available to them all the time. And when you put God first in your relationship, your marriage is like, it's going to be better. It just is. It just makes things make sense. And that's something that even now, like we struggle because we're human and we're busy. And like I said, we're business owners, and we do have a kid that has a lot going on. But it is so important that him and I go to church, we pray together, because how we treat each other is what Briggs will think is normal with his wife someday. And that's very, very, very important to me. So, making sure you love people through all phases, knowing that like beauty and finances and even health, unfortunately, comes and goes. And that, it's about being with someone that can be through like the good, the bad, and the ugly. Like it's like when they say for better, for worse, vows haven't been around all this time saying those things for fun, through sickness and in health, through rich or for poor. Those things are all things that like they're preparing, like this is going to happen. So buckle down. So, I think that's important, putting God first, that's first and foremost, but also loving each other despite our flaws. So like, that's something like Josh, of course, like I said, he was, a bachelor guy when I met him. Of course, I, had always had like more serious relationships. And at that point, I'm like, I'm ready to settle down. That I wasn't for a long time, because I was so burnt by just the idea of relationships. And because of no reason in particular, just, you go through those phases. And I was ready just to settle down when me and Josh finally did. We both were on the same page. I knew he had things he had to work on, and I had things that needed to be worked on outside of just being in a relationship, just personal things. And knowing from that point, which was several years ago, almost 4 years of just marriage, but I have to love him and he has to love me, despite all of our imperfections and insecurities and faults and flaws, because they don't go away. Okay. If you think, oh, it'll get better when we have a kid. No, it doesn't. If anything, it gets worse. I'm not saying you can't improve when you have a kid, because I think it does put things in perspective. But there's a chance that maybe like if they're short-tempered or they're this or that, it's maybe not going to get better if you have a kid, or if you live together, or if you travel more, or if you have more money. Like those are unrealistic standards, and I don't encourage you to live by them. I'm not a marriage counselor, and I'm a literal nobody. I say that all the time, but it's true. I'm a nobody. I don't have marriage figured out. I don't have relationships figured out. But what I do have figured out is that talking to people who are real and go through real things make you feel more encouraged that you're not alone. I've watched so many videos and just videos after videos about relationship and relationship advice, and they're always just like, we love each other, we're never jealous, and they're multi-millionaires. And listen, there ain't nothing wrong with that. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, none of it. If you're all those things, kudos to you. But realistic, in my life, those things are not all true. And I want to hear sometimes like, hey, it gets bad. It gets bad sometimes before it gets better. And the most important thing is having a partner that you'll stick by you, support you, and love you, knowing you're very imperfect, because it's real and it's going to happen, and you're going to show your ugly side even if you don't want to, because that's real life. So just loving each other, knowing that, hey, you're going to mess up, I'm going to mess up. These are the flaws. Let's not have unrealistic expectations for each other, because we're just going to be let down. And then the other thing is just like remembering that you guys are on the same side. I remember, I think it was my mom that used to always tell me that, like, you need to remember that, like, you guys aren't fighting against each other. You're on the same side. You guys maybe just have, like, different ideas of, like, what the solution is. So just remembering, like, if you're going through something and you guys are getting, like, more irritable with each other, about to, like, kill each other, just remember, like, you're on the same side. You guys are both probably looking for a solution passionately, and just to take a step back and remember, like, hey, we're both on the same side. We love each other. We just have different ideas of what the outcome looks like. Like, how can we meet in the middle? Because meeting in the middle is really something you have to do every day, all day long, every day, all day long. So just remembering that you guys are friends, you're on the same side, not enemies, and it gets better. So, sometimes it does have to get real ugly before it gets better with all things, but it's worth it. It's worth fighting for each other. It's worth trying, because the grass isn't greener on the other side. You hear this all the time. It's green where you water it, and that is a true thing. It's so funny because I'll get on social media, maybe, even a friend or a family member, and I'm like, oh my gosh, they just have it together. Look, they travel and they, oh, look at the, it's like, and guess what, and then I'll talk to them like, oh, I just wanted to, knock him out. He was wearing me out the other day. And I'm like, oh, like, we're all real. We all get sick of each other because we're real, and just prioritizing like that alone time, so you can be the best person you need to be for them and for if you have children. And if you're waiting, wait. Be patient. If you aren't in a relationship, be patient. Like, this is not a race. I know for me, like, living in a small town, I say this all the time. I say this all the time. And I've said this over the years many times to my friends and my, my girlfriends that were looking or dating or whatever. I live in like a rural small town, and the norm is basically get married, immediately have kids, and that's the way it goes. Okay. Get married young, have kids young, all of that. I'm not saying everybody does it, but it's like a common trend. And there's nothing wrong with it. Like, I'm totally for it if that's for you and you're with the right person and so forth. But that's not everywhere. We see celebrities and people all over the world just starting to have kids in their late 30s, even 40s. And guess what? There's nothing wrong with that. Don't put yourself on this time frame and end up with the wrong person, because I can promise you what's going to happen is you're just going to start over. You're going to end up starting over anyways. If it doesn't work out, then you're back to square one anyway. So waiting a couple years isn't going to be the end all. It's okay if you're just 40 having your first kid. There's nothing wrong with that. As long as the health portion is in check, like, do you, and I think a lot of times it's, like I said, comparison is a thief of joy. And we get into these, like, I've got to do this. I've got to be married. We've got to have this kid. And if we don't plan out, and listen, I am the queen of FOMO, and I'm the queen of schedule, and it has put a toll on my marriage. That is something that I have to work on, and had to work on dating, and had to work on, this entire time, and even through my dating history, because I look back now, I'm like, thank you, God, for not giving me what I thought I needed. And if I was pushing the gas in a lot of those situations instead of like tapping on the brakes, it could have run my life. I wouldn't have the things that I have now. And I wouldn't have Josh, I wouldn't have Briggs, I wouldn't have all the awesome people and family that he's brought into my life. And I don't want a life if I don't have that. So, we have to remember, even in our time of waiting, that God is good, and like he hears our prayers. He hears the desires and knows the desires of our hearts. And we just have to know that he's going to handle it in his time. And for whatever reason, it may not be the time frame that you think is best, but it will be worth the wait. I promise you. Because like I said, I have, even in my life, like I think so many times how thankful I am for all the things that God has given me, and that I didn't get what I thought I wanted. And I have girlfriends that'll say the same thing. They've went through really hard breakups or divorces or just struggles, and they're like, thank God I listened, and thank God I made the choice I did. And God knows, and we just have to be patient and trusting enough to listen to him. And like I said, again, this isn't because me and Josh have it all figured out. I'm learning. I'm saying these things because it's also a good reminder to myself. We're human. We need to work on things. How we speak to each other, how we show each other our love, remembering each other's love languages, all those things, dating still, and if you are dating, just taking your time and enjoying it, because life is so short and it goes so fast. And life is just busy and it never slows down. So if you're watching this and maybe you're feeling discouraged, you haven't found the one, or you're with the one and you're not sure, trust me, you'll be sure if they're the one. And if you're not sure, you need to be praying and asking God to show that to you. Because forever is a long time. Marriage is meant to be forever. And even friends that I've had, that has experienced, unfortunately, divorce, they'll tell me and have told me in the past, like, I'm in this for the long haul, and forever's a long time. And, maybe they're remarried or they're dating someone seriously, and they're like, I am so glad I made these decisions. And now I can see why these things are important in a marriage, and that forever is such a long time. And it goes by really fast if you're with the person that you love, because you're enjoying things and you're having fun. So, like I said, don't be discouraged. Trust that God has a bigger plan, and it's all going to work out. So, my lengthiest video yet. Wow, I didn't know I could even do that. But I hope you guys stayed and watched this. I hope it's encouraging to anyone who's watching this, and I'll be praying for you guys this week. So, hope you have a great rest of your week.